You are now listening to episode number 23 of the Let's Go Comic Show. My name is Justin, and before we even get into the show, Matt is gone. I don't know where he is. I feel like he may be lost in, I don't know, the 0 hour or something like that. But have no fear, friends. We have RAD Friends.
We got RAD Friends. RAD Friends, RAD Friends.
Welcome to the show. Terence O'Neill from the Robin Everyone Loves the Drake podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I had to kidnap Matt, and he's tied up in my closet here to get on. But don't tell anyone. This isn't good. No one's gonna hear this, right?
No. Oh no.
Yeah,
just
cool.
Just everyone. He's almost like Tim Drake in wherever Mr. Oz has him or whatever's going on exactly. With that story. He's just tied up in with ropes in a closet. It's not even a cosmic problem. It's just he's just been tied up.
The police
it's
can't
not
get
as
me.
big.
Yeah, because it's outside of space and time, so it's out of their jurisdiction. So yeah.
There you go. You can't deal with closets.
Yeah.
So this is awesome. And so here's the thing. Like, this is just good that you're on the show in general, but you actually won our contest like a few months back, and it was just kind of a let's go in general, like, universe of shows. Like, hey, just subscribe to the YouTube and some other things, and you won the drawing, so it was kind of cool. Out of, like, we had to go through, like, 50 names, and on all honesty, I just drew it, and I was like, oh, that's funny. It's Terrence from the Robin show. So there you go.
And I think it was the same week that we asked you to be on our show, because I think we asked you, and you're like, oh yeah, and by the way, Terrence, you won the drawing to be on our show. I was like, cool, that's awesome.
Yeah. So there you go. So anyways, it wasn't a favoritism. It was literally just one of the luck of the draw type of deals, and it was good. Anyways, hey, I'm really excited that you're here because it's kind of interesting to hear other people's takes on comics and where they came from. So since you haven't been on the show, and it's going to be kind of a given that you have an affinity for the Robin character, especially Tim Drake, since you have a show focused on him, I just want to give you the floor a little bit to talk about what's your comic book story and go from there.
Yeah,
Is that cool?
That sounds cool, and thanks. And I got to tell you, I've been hearing a lot of your voice lately, because I was listening to as I told you the other day, the Let's Go show and the Let's Go comic show when I was cutting the grass over the weekend. And then I've been loving the Batman on film, Dark Knight Rises. I don't know what you call that, slugfest battle. And that has been so much fun. And I got to tell you, I was listening to it with my 12-year-old stepdaughter, and she was like, she's like, I really want to see this movie, because she had never seen any of the Nolan trilogy. So so I'm like, well, you can't just watch Rises, you got to watch all three. So she's like, okay. So yesterday we watched Begins and half of The Dark Knight, and then today we watched the other half of The Dark Knight and all of Rises.
Oh, wow.
So it's been pretty cool. But Rises is so hard, because when I listen to the podcast, like, the people who have issues with it, I'm like, yeah, they're right. And then the people who love it, I'm like, yeah, they're right. Like, I just go back and forth like a ping pong ball on that one. It's really tough. But before I give you my story,
it is hard because we actually are doing a part 2 follow up to that episode on Batman on film.
Yeah, I can't wait for it.
There's just I think there's still a lot of feelings and opinions on it, and so, but yeah, it's definitely a polarizing film. And I think a lot of it's in jest. I mean, if you look at, there's a lot of Twitter back and forth, and I'll joke like, dude, we'll go 700 and something posts about The Dark Knight and Rises, and in the end, it's just a fun movie. But it's I think the fun of it is when you don't take it too serious and you kind of beat it up a little bit.
Yeah,
and in my opinion,
it's so hard because it's got to live up to its predecessor, and its predecessor was one of the greatest movies with one of the all-time greatest performances of all time. He won the Academy Award, for crying out loud. So it was like recognized by his peers. So that's tough. But my stepdaughter was so like the podcast that she's inspired to do her own podcast. She's like, can I do my own podcast? And all night she was making like logos for her own podcast. So you guys like inspired her, because the world needs more podcasts, So, but I wanted to ask you one quick thing before I give you my story. The only thing I don't like about the Dark Knight, which I can never figure out, and maybe somebody could tell me,
Mm-hmm.
why does Alfred not want to rub suntan lotion on that the beautiful Russian ballerina? Like, you know what I'm talking about? When he's on the yacht and he's like, "What's Russian for? Put your own damn lotion on." I'm like, dude, what's your problem? Yeah,
Here's my take on this. I feel like this Alfred is very much not the daily servant guy, but he's kind of the partner,
yeah,
And to him, it might have been like below him, but at the
yeah.
same
Okay,
time, it's like that's one of the deals where you know what, I'll take on duties as assigned, right?
yeah, exactly.
But
Like half
yeah,
the time he's carrying around a serving tray with food, like rubbing lotion on a beautiful girl in a bikini is not so bad. But
he may feel it's below him,
exactly, yeah.
Who knows?
He's just a grumpy
knows?
old man. Yeah.
My
But,
cocaine.
yeah. But going in, I liked superheroes as a kid. I couldn't even tell you when I started liking Batman and Superman. It goes all the way to like 1 and 2 years old. Like there's pictures of me with like superhero stuff and, Christmases with all Batman stuff. So it was always there. But somewhere around middle school, I became too cool for that stuff. That was like little kid stuff and was getting into music and,
Wanting to run suntan lotion on bikini ladies.
exactly, girls. I made the mistake of throwing out all my toys, all my Star Wars,
Oh,
G.I.
man.
Joes, and all that. Just I don't need that. That's kid stuff. And so then I was in ninth grade. It was like 1988, and a couple kids in school who I was kind of friends with, but not too much, but a little bit, were talking about how Robin had been killed in the comics. And
Yeah.
that was the first time I'd even thought about Batman or Robin in like years. And I asked them, I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And at first they didn't want to tell me because I think they were like kind of guarded, like I was going to make fun of them or start teasing them or, because comics still had that stigma, especially in middle school. And so finally they kind of told me like, oh, he got killed by the Joker, whatnot. And I couldn't believe it. So I went home and I asked my mom to take me to the, comic book store because I'm like, I got to read this. I had never read a comic book before. And they had A Death in the Family. They had it as a trade paperback and it had just come out. Like the next issue hadn't even been out yet. And so I bought that trade paperback and I was confused and I was like, wait, who's Jason Todd? And was Dick Grayson in the 66 show? Because there was like an introduction. I read that first. And but from there, I just got hooked. I just started buying comics like crazy and buying all the back issues. And it was a good time, 88, because that was right before 89 and Batman 89 and got into it. And since then, I've been kind of off and on with comics. There's been times in my life where just like life is just too much and finances are too low or whatnot. But if the new 52 came out and I was buying everything DC new 52 for about 8 months, and then I slowly whittled it down, and then eventually I wasn't buying anything. And then when they did Rebirth, I started buying all the Rebirths through the mail order. You can get them for half price with the there's that company DCBS. They do these like ads in the book, and
Oh yeah, they're actually really a great like way to get comics in bulk if you're able to
yeah,
do
because
that.
I was buying the Rebirth for I was buying the new 52 for half off, and they charge you a flat rate for shipping. It's like $7 no matter how many you buy, and then they stopped doing it, and I sent them an email. I'm like, how come we can't do it? And they're like, oh, DC's not doing that anymore. So since Rebirth though, they've been offering the bundles. You can get every Rebirth title for 50% off. And so DC, I guess, is still doing it. So as long as they keep doing that, I'll keep doing it. And I've really liked the Rebirth stuff. So since Rebirth, I've been pretty much reading everything DC. The only other two books I get, I've been reading Old Man Logan with Marvel, just mainly because there's a guy I work with who's kind of a Marvel guy, and he gets about 15 Marvel titles a month, and he just kind of brings them in and lets me read them. And Saga from Image Comics, I like that one a lot too. That's
Okay.
a cool title.
That's a good one.
But mostly it's been DC pretty much my whole life. I've read a lot of Marvel, just it's never really clicked with me the way DC has.
I'm kind of both, I just went to the shop today before we started recording, and because I haven't been in almost like I feel like 2 weeks, and so my drop was a little bigger than normal. I was like, man, that was
Yeah.
expensive, but I was like, well, I haven't been in 2 weeks, and so which is really hard because I think I was 2 weeks ago because last time I picked up books was like Batman, and so it's Batman again. But yeah, I think I get a good mix of Marvel and DC, and then there's a few independents I'll pick up. And I always like to try something new, just if it looks interesting to me, like, yeah, hey, I might like that, or if someone like tells me, oh, you'll love this book. So yeah, but DC's always been like my guy, and it's just because of Batman. I've always been a Batman fan, and so he drew me into the DC universe. I mean, I knew Superman and stuff, but it was like, I'm gonna go where Batman goes. Justice League, I'm gonna read Justice League. I grew up on the Justice League International books, which at first I was like, what the heck is this all about? Because it didn't have the guys I thought it would have. I thought it was gonna have all the all-stars, and it was like Guy Gardner Green Lantern, who actually is like my favorite Green Lantern, because I just grew up on this kind of jerk Green Lantern character, and then like Blue Beetle, Booster Gold, like those characters, Mr. Miracle, which I actually bought today, the new issue of Mr. Miracle, which I'm pretty excited to read. So yeah, like those types of characters. So it just started getting me into this DC universe I never knew about. As a kid, I just knew kind of about the Super Friends and the stuff that they would just market. The everyday heroes. People know what Flash, Aquaman is. They don't know maybe the origins, but they're like, oh, that's the Flash guy. He runs fast. There's the water guy. So yeah, it's interesting how you get pulled into the things that you like. Because I kind of had a similar story. I never really backed out of comics in high school or middle school. I backed out a little bit once I got out, but man, it was maybe a little bit of my junior year. But I jumped back in. It was basically due to lack of money. So once I made money, I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy comics again. Yeah,
the Justice League International stuff is so good. I mean, I read some of that, like trade paperback to start out, and then kind of caught up with the series, or like I guess around issue 40 is when I kind of joined in. But it is so funny, and some of it doesn't hold up as well today, but if you compare it to what was out at the time, it was so ahead of its time in like giving the superheroes personalities and making them not perfect and making them kind of jerks at times and like imperfect and having faults. I mean, it was so, to coin the phrase of the Joker, ahead of the curve from everything else. And a lot of stuff is caught up. So if you read it today, it doesn't quite seem so amazing. But I mean, most of the books back then were still, the superhero was like, well, attention citizens, everybody stand back. And these guys were just like normal jerks. And yeah, I love Guy Gardner. And I think the hardest I ever laughed in a comic was, I forget which issue, but it's one of like the first issues where it was I think it was just called Justice League. It wasn't even international yet. And the bug enters like Russian space, and he like leaves the ship and he's like singing like God Bless America or something. I mean, I like my sides hurt laughing so hard at that.
Yeah. And everything, it wasn't like, well, I think it kind of got sillier as it went on, but in those first like 7 issues or so, like even Batman would be quippy, but it wasn't like jokes. He was always kind of serious. But I think in that same scene, there's a thing about like them saying, Batman, they should just give you the Green Lantern ring. And then Blue Beetle's like, nah, that's not a good idea. He's all, who would buy a superhero named the Green Batman? And then Batman's like, well, who buys somebody called the Blue Beetle? And then it's kind of this back and forth. So and I think Batman's always had a little bit of smart quippiness to him, but he's not like knocking jokes out all the time. So, but anyways, that Justice League series, it's probably one of my favorites, and it's one of those deals where I've actually bought like all the collected editions they had of it, and then they stopped making the hardcovers. I don't know why. They did like 4 of them, and then they stopped, and I really, really, really love those issues. And I think they kind of screwed over the Maxwell Lord character. I don't know if you saw any of that stuff back in like 2006, where he kills Blue Beetle. Spoilers, people. Spoilers to whatever it was. I think it was Infinite Crisis or whatever, where he kills Blue Beetle, Ted Kord, and all that stuff. And I don't know. That didn't make any sense to me. But anyways, so what are you currently like? So I know you kind of like talked about the Rebirth stuff. What is some of your favorites in those line of books?
I'll tell you the one that surprised me that I really like, that I was kind of like, what is this? And then I picked it up, and not a lot of people are reading it from sales figures, is New Superman. I don't know, have you read New Superman at all? Or
okay, you know what? I bought the first couple of them, and I didn't hate it. I think it was more of like, man, my budget of what am I going to buy? But it was actually kind of one of the Superman stories that seemed interesting when they announced it, because they announced like Superwoman and all this other stuff, and I was like, Do we need Superwoman? Maybe we do. Maybe it was. I mean, I don't know anything about it, so I didn't read it. So it's kind of hard to judge based on the premise of it's Superwoman. But the new Superman seemed really interesting because I like when they do. Grant Morrison did it, and it was called the Super Young Team, and it was kind of this I think Tokyo version of the Teen Titans hybrid of Justice League. Oh. And would you look at this? Right out of the Phantom Zone is Mr. Matt Richey himself. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing good, man. Glad to be back.
Cool. So we are on the line here with Terence from the Robin Everybody Loves the Drake podcast. And remember, he won our contest for winning a spot on the show. And just so happened that
right on.
I already knew who he was. So
there you go.
Even better. And he's got podcast experience. So he's not just some guy who's like, I like stuff.
Hey, man. So. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I thought maybe that's why you didn't want me on. Yeah, I know this guy. Quick, pick another name. Yeah, but thanks. Yeah, in the new Superman, like I forget where it was from, but I think it was Grant Morrison had like superheroes around the world, and he had like a Chinese superhero, like August Irons in Chains, if you know him. He's made an appearance, and the very first Detective Comics way back 1938 or 39, it had that like very stereotypical like face of, I guess, a person from China. And it has that image, if you know what I mean, of Detective Comics #1. They've brought that character back, and it's like, and it looks exactly like the cover. Really? And the guy who writes the book is a Chinese American, so it's kind of cool. Like he's got a lot of background, and it's very authentic, but it's sort of like, spoilers, the character is one of those things that were like, it's a projection. It's not his real face. It's like his disguise, and he's doing it. He's a Chinese like martial arts kind of expert, but he's doing it as like I don't even know what you'd call it, but like a retribution for like America's or racism. Like, this is how they portray us, so I'm gonna be that kind of thing. It's kind of a cool twist on it, and it's cool to cool callback all the way to like the very first Detective Comics. So that's been a fun book. That's been a surprise.
Nice. Yeah. I know he was gonna show up in a crossover soon. I think at Comic-Con they announced he's gonna be in Action Comics with the rest of the Superman family. So I might pick that up. Because I thought it was a cool idea and a cool comic. It was just due to the budget, man. Sometimes today I actually made a budget cut call, and I'm not going to continue to get. I think I'm going to stop getting Daredevil after this issue because I'm reading him in Defenders, and I think I'm enjoying Defenders more than Daredevil, and that's hard because Daredevil's my guy.
Yeah, that characterization's really good right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Daredevil book is good, but if I had to pick one, what do I like more, Daredevil or Defenders? And when I saw the Defenders book today, I was like, oh man, I gotta get that. And then when I saw Daredevil, I was like, oh yeah, I better pick Daredevil up too. So it didn't feel like there was urgency to it. It was more like, and I'm trying to get out of the habit of like completism. I just want to read stuff that's good.
That's hard to break. Yeah.
So,
especially for Justin, it's hard to break.
I mean, it really is. I mean, going back, we were talking earlier. Yeah, for me, it is hard to break. Because going back earlier, we were talking about like buying comics. So when I had money as a young guy, I would like I buy everything DC almost. I mean, everything. Like, even if it was like, a one shot, I'm going to buy that. And I would read it all, but sometimes I'm like, oh, that wasn't good, but I kept buying it. I was like, oh, wow, Justice League Task Force, I'm going to buy that, which I didn't think that was a great comic, but I bought it. I even bought Extreme Justice, which was terrible.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
That's where Captain Atom has the mullet, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. It was like, how do you have a shiny mullet? But he did. I was like, what's up with that? So anyway, Matt, what are you currently reading right now, man? We were just kind of talking about what are we currently kind of going through. And
yeah, I mean, I think, I feel like Secret Empire is probably taking up a lot of space right now. But I mean, that's kind of a temporary thing, right? I mean, I was just thinking about that because I picked up the new issue today.
Oh, nice.
I got back into Flash a little bit just because I'm curious where that story's kind of going. And it's one of those things where I feel like I just want to kind of be informed of what my favorite character is doing, not because I'm like loving the story. I mean, I guess that's probably not the best reason to get a book, but here we are.
Well, it's kind of like you gotta jump back in sometimes if you don't like something. Like with Detective, for me, I won't go all the way. And I know some people, it's their favorite Batman book.
Yeah.
But I think I'm behind about 5 issues now, and to be honest, the ones I bought, I think the last one I read was a couple issues after Tim Drake got zapped. It just is really hard for me to get into, and so I'm like, why am I buying it? Am I buying it because I used to always buy Detective? So I have to, again, it's like I'd rather buy something new. Like I got Mr. Miracle today, and I'm really excited about that. And
Dude, I'm
I want to be
excited
excited about the book that I'm getting. So yeah, man. But I am hoping some of this the stuff I'm reading ends. So I'm looking forward to the end of Commandy and the end of Bug. Not because they're bad books, but like, oh man, they're limited.
Well,
And
there's
that'll
an end
save
in
me
sight.
$7.
So, I mean, that helps.
Yeah, there's an end in sight. Even with Killer Be Killed,
Especially
I got
when you
that
have-
today. I was like,
yeah.
oh man,
Yeah.
Killer Be Killed needs to end soon. Or I might just drop it. So I don't know. So
That's one of the reasons why I'm kind of excited about Mr. Miracle, not just because I've loved Tom King's work the past couple of years, but it does have an end. Like I've seen him in an interview, and he said there's a beginning, a middle, an end, and so
wow.
it looks. I just really like that idea as opposed to all right, we're starting. Here's issue 1, and who knows how long it'll go.
oh, you know what? I did not know that, but yeah, it's only 12 issues.
12-issue
Yeah,
series.
it says that in
They're-
the corner of the page, right?
I did
yeah,
not know
DC
that.
had on their YouTube page like a
So-
cool little interview with Tom King, and he kind of said like he's trying to make it like live up to like a Watchmen or a Dark Knight Returns or have it be on that level. And he said it's like, can I do that? No, but I'd be
Wow.
stupid not to try. So that got me really excited. And one of the things he mentioned is
Yeah.
that it is a
Yeah.
12 issue, so he has a beginning, middle, and end all set out for it, and that it'll have pretty much every one of the New Gods characters will make an appearance in the series. So it looks really cool.
I think Mr. Miracle is one of the coolest characters that's out there. Like, but he doesn't have a huge, like, I mean, mom and dad don't know him. If your parents know who a character is, and there's like, they've transcended comics into kind of the general, like populist idea of a superhero is, you know what I'm saying? So with Mr. Miracle, he kind of has the freedom to do whatever he wants. I mean, he has to stick to his established status quo, but man, he can explore whatever the heck he wants with the New Gods and stuff. So it's kind of cool. And plus, Tom King, I like everything that I've read by him. There hasn't been anything that I've read that I'm like, So I still need to go and check the rest of that Vision series out. So Matt, you read it, right?
Yeah. Oh man, it was so good. Well worth it, man. Like I mean, like you guys said, like he has a track record. You know what I mean? You kind of build up trust after a while when you have a book and a writer. I mean, sometimes an artist, you kind of have your go-to. And I think Tom King has become that, like, has a proven track record in a really like short amount of time. He's proven himself to be, I think, a really dependable creator to kind of like, yeah, I'll check out what he's doing.
Yeah. And so speaking of reading the Vision, I didn't cancel my Marvel Unlimited, even though I left myself a calendar. So have you ever done Marvel Unlimited, Terrence?
Well, kind of. My friend at work has it, so he's kind of given me his username and password. So,
oh man.
But I think it's hurt Marvel sales because talking to him, he'll say a lot of times like, oh yeah, I didn't buy this book because I'll just wait for Unlimited. Like anything that he's ever kind of been on the fence about, he's always just said, I'll just wait for Unlimited, which I think hurts them, short term.
Well, I think what hurts Marvel is they just oversaturate the market with the same stuff. Deadpool. Because I even said I would buy a great X-Men book, because I did for a little bit. I used to buy all new X-Men because it had a good artist and a good writer, and I was like, I can follow this. And then once it starts, I get crossovers are inevitable and they're part of like the business, but once it starts going everywhere else and you start, hey, we're going to give, Iceman his own book and you have to read Iceman, like, I'm done. I'm out. It just doesn't, like, miniseries are fine, but like once it's like not every guy needs his own book, then it starts to like, it just spreads. But what I do, with Unlimited, they make money on Unlimited. People have to pay for it. You can either do the monthly, whatever, it's like $9-10 or whatever, or you can do the yearly for like the $100 or so they're making money on it. But what I think it does, it's a good way to get someone like myself who I haven't paid for it in a while. I just do every time a movie comes out, they do like a promo code. Like, hey, I think we did the Homecoming promo code, so we get it for a month. And so for me, I'm like, I can catch up on stuff and go, you know what? I think I do want to read, whatever. And so it will, I think it's kind of a primer for people to jump into some of the series they get to investigate. So, but I think
I think it can be.
I don't know, the digital platforms are really, really fun though. I feel like I would read more if I was completely like out of paper. I do like holding it, but I feel like I read more when it is digital because it's easier for me to read, if that makes sense, because I can lay in bed and read it on my iPad. Whereas it's hard for me to like flip through the pages and my wife's sleeping and have the light, the little reading light on. I don't know. I just feel like it's easier on the iPad, but yeah. But anyways, going back.
And you're gonna creep your wife out a lot less because you're not gonna sniff your iPad. So
I know, man.
I mean, if you're sniffing floppies next to her, dude, then that's when it gets weird.
Best thing ever. Okay, so last Saturday I got to go to this estate sale and I bought all these comics. Right, I bought like freaking 80-something comics for like $20, and I got a whole bunch of like 1980s, 1990s detectives and whatever, and some old Gold Key Disney comics that I wanted to get just for the purpose of selling, right? So I get all this stuff home and I'm sorting through it, and my son's all, "Dad, what's that smell?" I'm like, "Huh?" He's like, "The comics, they smell really good." And I'm like, "Smell them floppies." I'm making that shirt, dude. I got to make that shirt. We'll sell 10 of them. So yeah, he's like, "Dad, this smells different," because it doesn't smell like his comics. Like, the old comics, they have that smell. And he was just kind of like, "Dad, what is that? What does that smell?" There's a different smell. Like Mr. Miracle doesn't smell like those old comics. Mr. Miracle smells a little more plastic and, doesn't have that smell of adventure. Adventure smells a certain way, and it smells like yellow paper and 4 colors. Yeah.
Doesn't have that age.
Like, that's how Jack Kirby smelled. He smells like old comics. they need to do, in celebration of his 100-year anniversary of his life, they need to do Jack Kirby cologne. It's all Jack.
Yeah,
it's just scotch and old.
It's just
comics.
scotch.
Yeah, and cigars.
It's called Boom Tube. Jack Kirby's Boom Tube.
Nice. No, that is a whole different. That's a whole different
You
thing,
want to impress
man.
the big party in your life? Jack Kirby's Boom Tube. Hey, there you
Get
go.
away scot-free
get off
with
scot-
Jack Kirby's Boom Tube.
Well, we should make an ad. Sorry. So, all right. Hey, has there been any crazy news coming out lately that you guys have thought like, "Oh man, that's interesting. That's a thing going on with comics"?
The only news that I was thinking of, which it came out today, like the issue came out today, was, and I don't know if you picked it up, was Detective Comics.
yeah.
Did you get the one today that has Azrael going back to the Asbat suit?
No. Okay, that's actually good. I know, because Ryan was excited about that, but yeah, I think that's that's interesting. I think the suit they created actually looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
It kind of, I guess.
yeah, I don't
Because
know.
I guess all the Nightfall stuff wasn't in continuity now in the Rebirth stuff, but they're bringing the suit back, which I think is kind of cool because, that suit wasn't around for very long, but it's very iconic.
Yeah, it totally is.
Any Batman fan over 30, maybe even has kind of read Nightfall and seen that and knows that. So I think it's kind of cool that we'll see it in modern pages.
That's interesting because it. I always feel like Nightfall has never went away. So are they trying to say it never happened?
I don't know what they're saying because they've never really. They've been very vague about it, as far as I know.
Yeah, it's a whole that's the one part, man. Getting into New 52, where I was frustrated with well, what counts and what doesn't count. Mm-hmm. Because they kind of did a soft reboot with Batman and Green Lantern. Those are the only books that really if you read the last issue of Green Lantern and then the first issue of Green Lantern New 52, it just dovetailed right into it. But then as it goes on, you start to see the discrepancies. Well, if there is all these lanterns and stuff, did Hal Jordan still lose his mind at some point? Did he still lose his mind with the cyborg, right? In Coast City? And so that feeds out of Death of Superman. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. And so it's hard when you what counts and what doesn't count. And Tim Drake.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That's a whole rabbit hole to go down, man.
Yeah. So it would be interesting to see what the timeline is.
Yeah. Well, it feels like they're kind of doing that bit by bit. They're rebuilding that and letting us know. Do you know what I mean? They're kind of spelling it out to where before they left it a little open to interpretation. Like they didn't have to commit to anything.
Yeah, I always thought the problem was when they were introducing the new 52, like Jim Lee
Yeah.
and Dan DiDio went around the country talking to comic distributors or comic stores, and they said like the highest, they had a chart, and
Yeah.
they said the highest selling books, Green Lantern, Batman, those are going to change the least, and the lowest selling books are going to change the most. But the problem was, what if you look at who was on those books, Green Lantern with Jeff Johns, the Batman titles with Scott Snyder and Tomasi and, Capullo. You've got the most creative, artistic minds on those top books. And then you give them this, hey, we've got a new universe. They're the guys who are going to want to do the most change and come up with the most creative stuff and change things. So kind of once they started to get into the new 52, those guys ran with it, and those top books were changing the most, and it was very kind of muddled. And I think like the new 52, it seemed like they had a plan when they started, but they really didn't. It was like, let's just throw everything out here, see what sticks, vampire books, Western books, monster books, everything. And then they realized with Rebirth, well, the only thing that really kind of sells what they want are superhero books. So let's start, coming to, twice a month, the main characters and more Batman. But, it just became, it became really, the continuity is just really, really muddled.
Yeah, that's part of it. That was, I think the New 52 did start, I think it started earlier than they wanted to, because 7 issues into it, they did a rebrand and everything, and that was telling to me, like, I think they didn't want it to leak, and so I think they had to jump the gun on some of the stuff. But yeah, anyways, like, again, like Matt said, it's a rabbit trail of nonsense. So all right, so breaking news. So they just announced that so like if you've been reading like any of the Batman books, but mostly Batman, like Duke Thomas has been there, and even in the DC Metal, was it the Forging or what was it, Matt? The last issue, was it the casting?
Oh yeah, he was in.
He
both
was in
of
the
them.
casting, but
Forging the casting. Yeah,
they kind of Joker kind of called him the Signal, and so right now they're announcing that, and this is from CBR.com, that he's going to have a miniseries, and his name is the Signal, and so he kind of has they kind of like took that yellow theme he was going with and made him looks kind of Blue Beetle-y to me. Like, I don't know if you can see it, Terrence. I'll put a link to it in our, if you look in our show, you can check it out.
Yeah, they made him more like Batman-ish. Is what it sounds. I mean, it really looks like with this. They kind of double down on the Batman aspect of his costume, to where before it was kind of really felt like a generic, like he probably drives a motorcycle and stuff everywhere and has his helmet on.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. Are you saying that to be silly?
It at least has more personality, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I think it looks cool. It definitely yellow is just that's just an interesting like look. It reminds me of the X-Men from the 60s, which I like how those costumes look, but like how does that translate, into there's a link right there for you, Terrence.
I wonder if he's the day shift.
Cool, I got it. Yeah.
So, dude, is he the day shift?
He's like the day shift, and Batman's
they're
the
saying?
night shift.
Or
Yeah.
That's what I'm
you're
saying right now.
I mean, because it is interesting. There's like that.
I haven't read anything. I just saw the image.
So it looks like he's out there, like ready to handle some business.
Yep.
So it's cool. I don't have an issue with the design at all. So
When they announced the series, I didn't see this design until right now, but when they announced it, that's what they had said, that he was going to be like the daytime. Like he's like the daytime, and can do things in the daytime that Batman can't, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, that's what it's okay. So that's what it's saying. It's saying Batman may own the night, but with the new villains emerging during the day, he needs an ally to defend the city when he can't. Only one teen is up to the challenge, Duke Thomas. After months of training, he's ready to step out of the shadow of the Bat to become his own kind of hero. Meet Gotham City's newest protector, the Signal. So there you go. So, hey, did you ever read any of the We Are Robin stuff?
I did not.
Just a little bit. I read the Robin War series.
What did you think about it? Because it looked really interesting to me. I like the idea of a bunch of kids going, "We are Robin," like being inspired. It was kind of felt like the mutants from The Dark Knight Returns, but like with a desire to do good.
Yeah, I like that aspect, that it was just regular kids just taking up the mantle. Very much like what I loved about The Dark Knight The Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller's, is that, Carrie Kelly just took it on her own to become Robin. It's like, oh, Batman's back. He needs a Robin. I'll be that Robin. I'll go buy a costume. And it could have been so easy for Frank Miller to just have dismissed the whole notion of sidekicks and, this is serious, grim and gritty. We're not having that. And instead he put in one of the coolest Robins. It's kind of funny because one of the things I remember going way back to 1989 was after Batman came out, Mad Magazine did like a whole spoof on Batman, probably one of many. And they had, I think somewhere in Batman 89, they mentioned like, oh, crime is down, 80% at night. And Mad Magazine had like a little thing. Yeah, but it's up like 90% during the daytime or something. So I guess, whatever it is, 28 years later, they're addressing the daytime crime in Gotham. So
yeah, they're like, he needs like an afternoon guy. He's like, who's my afternoon Batman? Yeah. who's my early morning Batman? That's funny. Yeah,
the morning shift.
I kind of like that idea. The morning shift. That's cool. I'm down. I mean, it's cool. I've been liking Duke.
Yeah,
as a character, so.
I think it gives Duke a place like that actually seems like it makes sense. Then it's just not just adding one to add one, but like, hey, there's this need, and it makes sense for him to be there to fill that.
Yeah, I like it. We'll see where it goes. I do kind of like the idea of Batman working with a team of people. I know it's always like he's the loner, but I even liked the Batman Incorporated stuff. I didn't like the idea of Bruce Wayne publicly funding it. Like that was too like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, you don't want to have too many ties, but like sometimes I guess making them so close, it's when it's so obvious it's not obvious, but I like the Club of Heroes and that type of stuff, and the Night Runner and then the Knight and Squire and all that stuff. I thought that was kind of fun. So but yeah, I'm into this. I'm into the Bat family growing a little bit, man. That's good stuff. That's fun. So yeah. Frankie and her husband Robert, and there's other people, Edwin in there, they're telling me that of course I like the idea of Duke Thomas, but they're saying that Marvel's trying to rip off Wolverine with his look. And you guys have any thoughts on that? I didn't even think about that. Now that they said it, I can't not see the Wolverine mask.
Yeah, it does.
To be honest,
it does have a resemblance. Yeah,
man. Now I cannot unsee it, and so they might be. Well, you know what? But they're big Wolverine fans, and so there you go. But it's funny. Somebody
I think there's
said
a similarity, but
there's a definite similarity. But someone says.
Yeah.
Someone was saying like, well, Marvel's not using the character, so I might as well.
Oh, burn.
Oh man. So yeah, I don't know, dude. It's man, now I can't unsee it. It was kind of like when they did Shadowhawk and all those other characters, like in Image. He looked like Wolverine. I mean, he had once your mask goes off your face with the petals, you look like Wolverine. The silhouette, Wolverine. So yeah, man, I don't know, dude.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I think that they're completely wrong, but they're right at the same time. So Frankie and Robert, you guys suck. FYI. If you don't like that, hit the show up. You can contact me. And
it says here the second storyline's called Old Man Duke. I don't know if that means anything.
Old Man Duke. Sounds like a story about John Wayne.
Yeah.
Old Man Duke. Oh man, that might be the title of the show as well, Old Man Duke. So that's funny. Okay.
Did you guys talk about the Cable images from Deadpool 2?
No. Okay, so I was gonna get there. I was gonna get there. So that's why I'm glad you're here, Matt. Because
I got there.
Are good at remembering stuff. So yeah, Cable looks like a purple Bruce Willis to me. Yeah, did you see any of those pictures, Terrence? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought it looked pretty cool. Cable is one of the guys in the comics who it seems like unless you're doing CGI, it's really hard to replicate what's on the page, but you can kind of make him cool. But you'll never satisfy everybody, because I remember when the first X-Men movie came out, and Wolverine was my favorite character from the comics, and I read the comics and thought they'll never be able to put him on screen. And when I saw the first X-Men, I was blown away. I'm like, I can't believe they took that and put him on screen. It's so faithful to what I read. And my friend, who was also a fan, was like, what, are you crazy? Like, that was the worst. That was nothing like the comic. Like, his interpretation was so different. But I'm terrible at video games, but I like to watch the cutscenes on YouTube. And the Deadpool game where he's interacting with Cable was some of the funniest stuff that I've ever seen. So I hope that they have that element in the new movie. So, but just the look, I thought he looked pretty cool, and I'd rather it not totally match the comic, but not be CGI than the CGI. Although the stuff with the what's his face was pretty cool.
Oh,
in the
Colossus.
movie anyway. So
yeah.
Colossus, yeah,
that was my favorite version of Colossus
that worked
ever.
really well too. Yeah,
Yeah, so it looks good. I mean, again, I'm not a huge Deadpool fan, but the stuff that they're doing looks cool. Like, I think this is like, man, if Fox can keep up this like aesthetic with their X-Men films, cool, man. Because I think Cable looks great. I think Domino looks great. I saw people complain she's not albino, but it's like, I don't know. Her being albino isn't like the character. The character is
That's not
like,
her power.
Her power of like, her randomness or whatever, the probability powers or whatever she has. That's her power. I think it's a cool. I mean, it looks cool. So some people just need to calm down about like certain things. I think there's certain things that are, yes, Cable should have a metal arm, but does
and a
Domino
glowing
need
eye
to be albino? Yeah, he's got that glowing eye.
He's got the arm, he's got the glowing
Anywho.
eye, he's got a big old gun. I mean, that's kind of top 3 core things for Cable. Well, I guess the scar over his eye, his other eye. I mean, that's it, man.
Josh Brolin, dude, he's got a comic book pedigree, man. I mean, Thanos, and now Cable, and he was whatchamacallit, DC cowboy guy. What was his name?
Yeah.
Jonah Hex.
Oh, Jonah Hex.
Which
oh,
I never saw that.
man.
I never saw that movie.
I'd forgotten about it till now.
And
Thanks.
that's the thing. That could have been a really cool movie, especially with Josh Brolin. And from what I hear, it was just trash juice and terrible. And so yeah, I don't know, man. That's one of those things. Where, man, Jonah Hex is actually a really cool idea, and they could have done a really cool job of incorporating that into just the history of DC. But yeah,
maybe that's who Alfred's talking to in the Batcave when he said I knew you'd come. It's gonna Jonah Hex. Yeah,
it's Jonah Hex.
Yeah,
it's green. It's the Green Lantern. So, did you guys see that all the Miller world, all the Mark Millar, all his stuff's going to Netflix, like all his like properties that he owns, except for Kick-Ass and
except for those.
the whatchamacallit, the one that's just coming out again,
Kingsman.
the Kingsman. So they're gonna develop like properties out of his stuff, and that's kind of cool. I think they're even gonna develop Wanted, so it might be a little more closer to the source material than that movie that came out with Angelina Jolie a few like 10 years or so back. So that's kind of cool. Like a lot of different.
That's true.
Did
you read the source material?
No, I didn't. I did not at all. But I do know that the character in the comics was supposed to be based on like Halle Berry. And when they went to Angelina Jolie as the character, it was kind of like, that's okay. That's different. That's a different take, and it wasn't as faithful as some.
Well,
people
and the main
would have wanted it to
guy.
be.
Yeah. Well, the main character in the book was he's like based off of Eminem.
Oh, was he? Oh.
Like it's like crew cut, like bleached hair. Yeah, and he was like a horrible person. Like not someone. It was really hard to root for him. I mean, I feel like Miller he likes those kinds of characters in general, but man, that one seemed especially. So I'm curious what they can do. I mean, when Netflix has stuff like House of Cards and characters like that are kind of horrible people, but you kind of want to keep watching it, I guess that's the right place to go for Miller's characters.
I think he's a good writer. Like, some of the best Superman stories he wrote were the animated book that came out, the Superman Adventures. They put a book out late 90s, and it was really good Superman stories. And it wasn't like kid, it was just good stories about Superman. And so I was always hoping he would get his hands on maybe a Superman movie or a script treatment or something, but his hands are just full with his own stuff. And why not? Like, it's his stuff, and so he gets the credit, And he did Old Man Logan. I mean, you can't forget about stuff like that. That was a cool story back in the day,
Yeah, totally.
So much that it influenced a little bit the Logan movie. Not so much really at all, except more the idea of where he's at. But yeah, Millar's cool.
Did you like his Superman Red Sun?
Yeah,
where
I
like
liked
Superman's from the Soviet Union. Yeah,
I thought that was a really cool idea. I mean, have you ever seen they did a stop motion comic of it?
Yeah.
I think you can even watch that on Amazon or something. But I think that's a cool idea. That was a cool I love Elseworlds, and I like those stories where you can kind of take a character out of its normal, like like Injustice 2 is a big, gigantic Elseworlds, and it's not how you want to see those characters represented. Like, I don't want Superman to be murderous, but it's cool to see what would happen. Like, it's kind of like that's what everybody thought Superman was going to be in Batman versus Superman, or at least that was Batman's fear, is that it was going to go that way. But we all know that's not who Superman is. He's inherently a good person and wants to do good. But what happens when that guy has a bad day and just loses it? Everything's taken from him. So then he goes into this, this scary version of who you don't want Superman to ever be. And so it's interesting to see those takes. And so speaking of Elseworlds, they're doing an animated version of the first thing to ever kick off the Elseworlds. It wasn't even Elseworlds, but it kicked off Elseworlds was the Gotham by Gaslight. Have you ever read that?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, Matt, I got to get you a copy, dude. Because it's really like one of the coolest.
Dude.
Like, and I read that at a way young age. Again, your parents just buy you comics when you're younger, and so I think I was like 12 when I read that, and it was like Jack the Ripper murdering people, and it's like, I'm gonna read this.
That's intense, dude.
Yeah, it was super intense. Yeah, I got that in a Batman. It was called Batman Collection Volume 2, and it was like Arkham Asylum, which is really freaky and scary. If you ever seen that, Dave McKeon's art, it looked like a Cure record. It was like Dave McKeon and Grant Morrison, and so there was, I think it was Gotham by Gaslight, and then I think Batman the Cult.
Oh wow!
So like these three really intense Batman stories that. Yeah. And it was like, what the heck is going on? And so for me, I was just kind of blown away by like the craziness that Batman could be in. So anyways, Gotham by Gaslight, man, that's a cool story. That's just a really great book. And so I'm excited for the animated film that they're going to make out of that. So, and then they're going to do the Death of Superman and Reign of Superman in the animated like video releases, which they first kicked it off with Superman Doomsday, so it's kind of like they're going to revisit it and do it the right way. So I'm curious how they're going to make that happen, because that original story was Lex Luthor, his son, which was really him, a clone of himself. And so when they did the Superman Doomsday one, they updated it to just be Lex Luthor, right? And so I wonder what they're going to do with this. It could be confusing for people because Lex Luthor 2, and then it was not even the real Supergirl at the time. So yeah, I'm curious how that's going to be played out. I don't know if you guys heard of any of that stuff.
Yeah, the Gotham by Gaslight was cool because that is very steampunk, but I think it was even before anyone even knew what steampunk was. So now that steampunk's like a thing, I think it may get a real cool following. And if you ever check out, I know there's some clips of it on YouTube. They were going to come out with a Gotham by Gaslight video game, and it went, I don't even know how far into production, and there's some footage of like the gameplay and stuff, and it looks really awesome. But for some reason or another, it got scrapped. I think because the Arkham games were coming out or something. I'm not really sure. And
yeah, I remember hearing about that.
But there's some footage of it on YouTube. You should check it out. It looks really cool. And then the Superman, that first Superman Doomsday was not a very good movie. It was kind of disappointing.
Not at all.
But there is a documentary on the extras. It's got to be like an hour long, of the whole behind the scenes of the Death of Superman, the comic side of it, and how they came up with the idea and how they did the writing, and then how it exploded, and like the signings. And it is, I watched that over and over again. It is really cool. And I just wish they would make that for Batman Nightfall, a really good like hour documentary of the whole thing and how it happened and how it progressed. So hopefully there'll be some other cool behind the scenes stuff, because it's been kind of light, the recent releases.
I really hope that they do a Nightfall. I haven't really loved the last few DC Universe releases, to be honest. Like they haven't, I feel like they haven't struck the same chord as they used to. And I just don't know what it is. Especially the New 52 adaptations, just,
that's what I was going to say. It's going to be that, once they made that change over to really adapting the New 52 stories, I feel like you kind of felt that shift, and it just didn't feel the same.
Yeah, some of them felt, I feel like a lot of them, they were really trying to adapt the artwork of the books. And I know that like with Public Enemies, they tried to do, was it Public Enemies, where it was Power Girl and Hawkman and whatever, but they were trying to mimic the artwork of like Joe, was it McGinnis, and then they did the Apocalypse, where they tried to mimic Michael Turner's art. And sometimes I wish they wouldn't do that. I wish they would stick with one style, which they started to do with the New 52 stuff. But what ends up happening is I feel like the stories got worse, whereas like the style became consistent. I don't know. It was kind of just weird. Like, what do I want? I don't know. I think the best one was always going to be the New Frontier one, and it was. I still think they haven't topped that. You know, I think Under the Red Hood was really good. That's still a good one. And then
Flashpoint.
New Frontier was good. See, I had a hard time with the voice acting on Flashpoint.
Oh, really?
I don't know what it was about that one. I just the voice acting took me out, and it's still, you know, it was still Andrea Romano who did all the voice directing on all these DC things, and I just felt like they just didn't feel right to me. And I don't know, can't put my finger on it. It was just not. It didn't feel right. And so
I hear people say that about Batman Year One, that they didn't like the voice cast, but I thought the voice cast was great on that.
Yeah,
but it's very
I didn't have an
monotone.
issue with that one.
But yeah.
I thought the Batman Year One. I think that's just Batman Year One is one of those stories, though. It's like, man, if you touch it, you either do the whole thing, and you know you use the comic as your storyboard, or you adapt it like, you know, kind of like Nolan did for Batman Begins, where it's okay, it's respected, but you kind of do your own thing. And I think anytime you do something that's revered, you're gonna get pushback. But I thought Year One was okay. I didn't hate it or love it. It was just a good one. Same thing with The Dark Knight Returns, the two parts. I didn't have an issue with it. Some people didn't like that his monologues and his heads weren't there, but I thought it was an okay version. I didn't like the Joker, though. I didn't like the dude from Lost as the Joker. I thought he was awful. I just didn't. I don't know, man. It just felt like a weird pairing. Like at first, Michael Emerson. It felt like, oh, that might be interesting, but man, he did not do anything for me.
Yeah,
I cared less, dude.
Yeah, that wasn't a great one. That wasn't a good one for me. I thought what I was going to say about Flashpoint. I thought they did fine at adapting it. That's just so much was going on with that story in the books that it's really hard, I think, to capture it in one shot. Like, I would almost love to see that as like an animated miniseries or something like that. I mean, I think the more we see like long form storytelling on things like Netflix and that kind of stuff, like it's just a really good way to tell superhero stories. I think given the time, I think it could be something really cool. But yeah, I thought, agree with you on the voice acting. That was not the best. But did you see the New Frontier stuff? New Frontier is getting re-released, like with some extra stuff added to it and new artwork.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah. Oh man. Now is it because of anniversary, or are they doing kind of like I don't
know if it's that necessarily, or if it's just to honor Darwin Cook more, like to kind of include more of his work, like kind of new design for the cover, like that's his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys going?
Either way, I think it sounds cool.
Are you going to the movies Monday to see Batman and Harley Quinn?
No, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to. I'll probably just end up like I might just rent it or something. I haven't bought in one of those movies in a long time. Like the most current one I've watched was the Teen Titans one, because Ryan gave me his digital code. So
yes.
But I'm interested in it. But you know what? I haven't heard a lot about it. Like I've seen the trailers, but I mean they even played it at Comic-Con, and there wasn't much like, you know, said about it post. You know, usually people are like, oh, it was so good, but yeah, I don't know. Are you going to go?
I'm planning on it. I haven't bought the tickets yet, but I'm planning on it.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to go to if I'm going to guess they're going to do the second 60s animated adaptation. I'm sure they'll play that in the theaters. It seems to be a thing they're doing with the Batman one, so
it's just
I'll
cool.
Probably check that out.
It's cool to see it in a theater. It's a different perspective, the sound and everything. Seeing all the different Batman fans who are like there. I'm curious as if Harley Quinn will bring out kind of like the Harley Quinn crowd.
Yeah. Oh, probably. I mean, it's her 20 year or 25th that's cool. Like, I mean, this is all intentional to celebrate that. So hopefully, there's some other Harley Quinn announcements that come out this year. But yeah, I'll watch it. I love the Bruce Timm universe, and so if I had my way, I would probably always make everything a part of that. That's just so well done, and
it's a good one
be
to do.
Part of it and to build off of it. Makes sense to me. So, did you get anything this week, Terrence? Did you go yet, or?
No, I didn't get anything this week. I get my books monthly, so I got my monthly shipment last time. But I can say I'm looking forward to reading the next part of All-Star Batman. I really like what Scott Snyder's doing, and I like that they're ending the series with him, where it's not like someone else is going to take over and it gets watered down and it just kind of goes out with a whimper. Because that happened to like the Batman Superman title. Like that thing was a monster. It was like the number one selling book. It was so good, and then they just kind of had different art teams and writers, and it's just kind of sad how it just went out. So I really like that All-Star Batman's going to have like the proper ending.
Yeah, I think, and it's not really ending. It's kind of transitioning into a premium format book. And I don't know if it's going to be called All-Star, but I know that they talked about that at Comic-Con is as they do this whole like masterclass artist thing at DC. I think him and I think it's Sean Murphy are going to do the new story that they start in the higher format like books. They're going to be larger and everything. So better paper and all that stuff. So yeah, that's cool, man. Scott Snyder's a good writer, man. Like, I'm not a fan of Zero Year in the one where Gordon was Batman, but it wasn't bad stuff. It just wasn't my
super heavy
up to my taste. It's kind of like Dark Knight Rises. Zing. So.
Man, we couldn't make it. Couldn't make it.
Do you have a notepad of like all of the stuff?
I do.
I felt bad because the show was almost over, and you're like, yeah, well, I haven't even made my points yet, and I was like, oh no, and then so I was so happy when I saw that on Twitter that you're gonna have a part 2 of it. I was like, yes.
It wasn't like I was. I mean, I have a platform like if I want to talk about it, but it was. I did want to go a little, tit for tat with everybody, but it just. I think once you get like 4 guys and especially when like 3 of the 4 guys are super passionate about it and they're gonna defend anything. I mean, if Batman was giving everybody red jelly beans in the movie, they'd have been like, because he did it because he was trying to gain goodwill with the people and it makes sense, and like, oh really? Like, here's the thing: when you break it all down, I don't hate the movie. There's parts of it that just don't meet my sensibilities, and I like to poke the bear a little bit. Like, and we were talking about that earlier. Like, sometimes it's fun to like poke the bear, but in general, like, there's things where I'm like, yeah, that's cool, I can get that. But there's some stuff I'm like, man, if you think that makes sense, man, God bless you. I cannot wrap my head around some of these things. Like, let's send all the cops into the sewers.
Yeah.
For 4 months.
Yeah.
And then they all come out nice and groomed and clean and ready to fight. I'm like, and how did they feed them? They were giving them Big Macs down the sewer hole. Like, I don't buy any of that. That just didn't.
The cops should have learned their lessons, because in Batman Begins, they all get trapped in the Narrows, and it has where Loeb is like, we've got no one else to send in, and then you see the the tumbler go behind him, and then I noticed that watching all 3 of them back to back to back, the last 2 days, a lot of stuff from Dark Knight Rises, they kind of took from the other 2 movies. It was like, oh, well, this was a cool intro to the Joker, so let's do a cool intro to Bane. Like, all the police get trapped here, let's do it again. I think they kind of ran out of ideas a little bit and went back to them.
Some of it, but I think some of it was intentional. There's a lot of mirroring, and and Ryan had his like list of like, Bane is this and Batman's this, and like Bane's mask is the opposite of Batman's that covers his face. Anyways, there's like a whole bunch of, I think, intentional mirroring or like disfigured mirroring or whatever you want to call it, but it all came full circle, and I don't have a problem with that. I just, some of the story, but we'll get into that on Batman on Film part 2 of episode 8. I think it's going to be 86 part 2. So
oh, cool.
we'll see what happens on that. So stay tuned and check out the Batman on Film podcast this week, because you'll hear that. So, but I do have my list of grievances and opinions on that. So. Cool. Okay, Matt, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be a firecracker of a show. Matt, what you got, dude? What did you get this week?
This week just got what did I get? Secret Empire number 8 and The Flash. I think that was number 28. It's not in front of me, but I got it.
Okay, that was it, huh?
Yeah, like a pretty light week for me. I entertained the possibility of getting Mr. Miracle. I might just go back to the shop and get it just because it looks really rad. But yeah, like I think Secret Empire for me, kind of like we were talking about, for me, it's not even feeling like, even though it's been like, I think a main point from the creators that it's this isn't like in Elseworlds. It's not just going to be undone. It's not all a dream. You know what I mean? Like, no, this is real deal. It still just feels like an exercise in like, hey, what if, things were completely different? What would that look like? And so I enjoy the story for what it is. I think it's still like a let's go for me. I'm curious to see, because they're definitely getting toward the end of the story. So I'm curious to see how this wraps up. And
I know I still have
yeah, 6 and 7. Yeah.
I had 6 and 7, and I gave the other issues to Delon because he came by the other day, and I said, "Here, finish up because I'm gonna try to catch up." So
he's gonna pass you up, man.
I know I haven't read anything yet, so I can't really give a rating. But I did, like I said,
that was the only thing I've read.
What did you read?
That's all I read. I just read Secret Empire. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I got Daredevil 24, Mr. Miracle 1, Batman 28 from last week, Defenders 4, and then Commandy Challenge number 7, Killer Be Killed number 11, and then Superman 28. And I already know I'm not going to like 28 if it's a continuation of 27. So, and I feel like a jerk because last week people were like, "It's so good," and I just felt like it was super ham-fisted of a story. And so we'll see. I'll give it a chance, and maybe it pulls it out. So at the end, but I'm going to give all of these books a gotta go because I'm excited to read these comics today. So tonight will be a fun night for myself, and I'm going to watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 tonight because I got it on digital yesterday, and we're going to watch it tonight. So
nice.
I'm excited about that, man. How'd you like that movie, Terrence? Were you a fan of Guardians? Or
I did, but it's funny because my kids get so angry at me. I got a 12-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old daughter, and my 16 saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2 before we did, and was like, "Oh, it's so great, so great," and we didn't get to see it right away. And we actually saw Wonder Woman first, and then we went again and saw Guardians. And I was like, I like Wonder Woman better, and they like Guardians better, and they were just so angry at me. And I started like poking holes in Guardians a bit, and they're just like, they were so angry at me for liking Wonder Woman more than Guardians. But yeah, it was enjoyable. It was fun. I like the outer space stuff. Yeah,
they're they're two different films. Like it's always hard to compare movies and again, to say like, well, this was better because of this, and it's all subjective to what you enjoy. I just feel like you can't compare. Like you can't compare going back to Dark Knight Rises. You can't compare Dark Knight Rises to Batman versus Superman unless you're talking about specific things. Because they both have weaknesses and they both have positives, and it tends to go that way. Well, what about this? And we're like, well, I'm talking about your apples here. I'm not talking about your oranges,
Yeah.
I'm talking about Jack Kirby's boom tube. So anyways,
I do like one thing about Batman and Superman. I realized watching the movies. So when Batman Begins came out, he has his 30th birthday. Bruce Wayne turns 30 in the movie, and I turned 30 the year that came out. So I remember sitting in the theater like, I'm the same age as Batman. And now watching it, because I'm 42 now, I'm like, man, I'm 12 years older than Batman. Except in Batman v Superman, he's still got like 5 years on me. So that's I like that. So yeah, and then if they reboot it with Thomas Wayne, I'll have a decade. So to go, yeah.
Oh man, I hope they pull Thomas Wayne in the Flashpoint movie. Who knows what's gonna happen with that? But I hope that happens, dude. That's like, Jeffrey Dean Morgan wants it to happen because he's been kind of teasing it a little bit. So, Terrence, tell us how we can get in contact with you on the internets, and tell us about your show and what people can do to be a part of that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. And the show is Robin, Everyone Loves the Drake, and it's on the Batman on Film Podcast Network. So check us out there. My friend Rob started it. He's like by himself for like the first couple episodes, and then I joined him. And then Ryan, one of the roundtabler number 1 or 2, depending, is all joined us as a third member. So it's usually 2 of the 3 of us, or the 3 of us, or the 3 and a guest. And we just have a fun time talking Tim Drake, 90s comics, and whatever pops into our head. We just recorded the the 0 Hour stuff, and I think that'll be a 2-parter, and then we're going to go into the Prodigal line. The Prodigal story will probably take us 3 episodes or so. That's a really fun era of DC Comics. So check us out there, and on Twitter, at O'Neillties, ONEILLTIES on Twitter. So go ahead and follow me there if you'd like.
Yeah, man, I just say please listen to the show because it's fun, especially if you're a Tim Drake fan or even if you're just a Batman or a comics fan, because it's cool to see you guys go through the entire run of Tim Drake. And, he's got 100+ issues of his series, and there's a lot there, and they're actually really fun to listen to because sometimes I'm like, oh, I remember that. I remember all the early stuff when he got the Redbird and, Shotgun and all that stuff, dealing with those characters. And so, thank you for having me on the 0 Hour episode, because those are like 2 of my favorites, going into that like series. Those really stuck out like a sore thumb to me. So yeah, good show. So please check it out and support them because it's fun, and everyone loves the Drake.
Hey. Hopefully you'll be back on, and right. I also want to just thank you again for your awesome artwork you provided for the show. So when you see all of our artwork and everything, Justin did all that. It looks really fantastic. So, and hopefully you'll be back on if there's any storylines or anything that you really like. I want to talk about this. I've been waiting 25 years for this. Just let us know. Yeah.
When you get the Red Robin.
Yeah.
That'll be 25 years from now. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Awesome. Matt, how can people give you a little bit of a holler?
Just a little bit of a holler. At Matt Richey, MATTRICHEY.
Awesome. And you can hit me up on Twitter at J_Rocka. And you can hit up the show, but that's what we want you to do. Hit up the show and follow the show at Let's Go Comic Show on Twitter and Instagram. You can visit our website at letsgocast.com where you can check out this show. And you can also hit up our other show, just the Let's Go Podcast. Please go to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating and some positive comments because that really helps the show. And tell other people, tell all of your friends about us. Say, hey, you want to listen to a show about comics? You like comics? Listen to our show. And then also, we are running a contest. If you want some free Let's Go gear, like a t-shirt, we want you have till the end of August to follow our YouTube page and subscribe, and to also go to our iTunes and leave us a positive review. And what we're going to do is aggregate all of those followers and people who leave a comment, and we will draw a name, and proof is in the pudding. Terrence is a winner, so he is here because he won. But you will get a Let's Go Comic Show t-shirt, and so, or other swag that you want. So if you're like, oh, I prefer a mug, we'll make that happen. So please do that. You have till the end of August to make that happen, and then we will draw a winner. So thank you so much. Again, thank you, Terrence, for being here.
You're welcome. I hope I win a bottle of Jack Kirby's Boom Doom cologne when I take out that special lady.
Oh, yeah. Granny Goodness can't say no. All right. My name is Justin.
I'm Matt.
And Terrence.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go.